doing something new on the podcast today. I'm going to be focused on a topic here and then talk about the other part of that topic on the blog, Fantasy Football for Winners, the Facebook blog, as well as the website. So if you are interested in this topic, as I think you will be, because it's pretty freaking fascinating, then just listen to the podcast, read the blog, and you'll know as much as I do about the topic. By the way, I'm going to continue this podcast through the summer until week 1. If you really are enjoying this and you want me to continue into the season, please let me know, either with a review or stars, or just send me an email. I've been tracking the results of fantasy performances based on ADP, going back to 2012. I actually didn't do it for 2024. Haven't had time, I'll be honest. It is an exhausting process. It takes dozens and dozens of hours to put it all together. But I have everything from 2012 to 2023. What does that mean? In 2012, for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, defenses, I show the top ADPs for all those positions, as well as how they perform that season, including breakdowns by quarter of the season. So the first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, not quarter in game, but like weeks 1 through 4, 5 through 8, stuff like that. Obviously, the last quarter is more than 4 weeks these days, but you get the idea. To kind of show based on age, based on ranking, other stuff. So it is my the most important spreadsheet I have because it is so comprehensive and tells so many stories. Today, here on the podcast and on the blog, I'm going to tell one of those stories. There's an interest that we all have, I think, in finding the bargain, the deep cut, who no one is drafting, but we're going to go for it. And then if it works out, we struck gold. What I find fascinating is if we look back from 2012 to 2023, so that is 12 seasons. I know it seems like 11 to think about it, but it's 12 seasons. I had to catch myself, and I was looking at it like, wow, 11 seasons. Like, no, it's actually 12. From 2012 to 2023, I have a breakdown of all of the quarterbacks who finished in the top 12, who weren't in the preseason leading into week 1, ranked in the top 25. So in other words, you get all these quarterbacks. Geno Smith, in his breakout season for Seattle, was it 2 years ago, where he came out of nowhere and finished as the overall QB5. That is an example of a quarterback who is not ranked inside the top 25 in ADP, finishing in the top 12. So across those 12 seasons from 2012 to 2023, there have been 11 instances of a non-top 25 ADP quarterback finishing in the top 12. So roughly one a day. If you want to get granular about it, it's like 0.91 or something like that. What's fascinating to me is the tight ends, same thing. Non-top 25 ADP tight ends. How many finished in the top 12 from 2012 to 2023? And the answer is 24. More than twice as many quarterbacks. Now, obviously, quarterbacks score. The great ones score more than double the points of some of the greatest tight ends, unless you have like the uber tight end, the occasional, Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski kind of season that wipes everything away and makes them into first-round picks the next season. But more or less, we're talking about a doubling. So it is very interesting because there's also an inverted doubling of sorts, which is that if you draft a tight end that no one else is going to draft in your 14-team league, let's say, you have twice as good a shot of having that tight end end up being a top 12 tight end that season as you would if you drafted a quarterback who was outside the top 25 and therefore was seen as undraftable in your league. On the flip side, you're getting less of a bump for it. So that really tells a story to me. It talks about risk and reward, where we know that based on this data, the chance of getting a quarterback who is going to be a weekly starter when they're outside the top 25 is infinitesimal. You talk about all the non-top 25 quarterbacks, maybe 5 or 6 starters every year outside the top 25, maybe 4 to 5 are outside the top 25. But across 11 seasons, you're talking about 45, 50 quarterbacks who are starting week 1 that are outside the top 25. There could even be like 55 of those quarterbacks. And only 11 of them were surprises. Only 11 in surprises in the sense of finishing in the top 12. It's such a small percentage. So it stands to reason that, yes, you can get an advantage with tight ends, but you're not getting the same boom. It gets even more granular than that. And this really hit me, is that now when you go into the top 6 performances, so not just finishing in the top 12, but which of these non-top 25 positional players, positions, finished in the top 6 that season? And the answer is, across 11 seasons at quarterback, only 2 finished in the top 6. Geno Smith, that I mentioned, was one of them. At tight end, 6 of them did. So 3 times as many. Granted, it's a small sample size, but the sample size is 11 seasons. So in fairness, it's a large sample size that happens to have very few examples. That's a better way to say it. And the few examples tell a story, which is that if you are looking to get a breakout quarterback in your league, if you're in a best ball league, you're not going to get a breakout. You might get a top 12. You might get a top 12 to 16 or a top 16 to 18 kind of quarterback. That's great. If that's what you're looking for, that's terrific. But when you start getting into outside the top 25, you're really looking at the infinitesimal likelihood that you're going to break through with that player. At least at tight end, if you draft a starting tight end that is outside the top 25, you have 3 times the chance you would a quarterback of getting a weekly starter. I think Jonnu Smith might have been that last year. So the way we use this is obviously based on the way you approach drafting. I have talked frequently about how much I like Sam Darnold. I loved him last year. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous where he was ranked in his ADP. I thought he would finish at least roughly 8-10 spots ahead of his ADP. He did more than that. But that was an example of a major flaw in the system. Everyone seemed to miss, or most people seemed to miss the boat, and that was my point. Darnold is the second lowest ranked ADP quarterback this go around as well on a new team. It's inexplicable after what he did last year. I guess someone has to be second to last, but still, he's second to last. Aaron Rodgers is last. I'm not counting Russell Wilson, for example, because Russell Wilson might not start more than a few games. I'm thinking about the pretty much automatic, they're going to start every game unless there's a complete disaster or a huge injury. So the Sam Darnolds of the world, yeah, I want to draft Sam Darnold in my 14-team league. I think it would be great. But the chance of him being a weekly starter is so slim that if I'm hanging my hat on that kind of pick and I'm saying, well, I'll let all these other guys go, I know I've got Sam Darnold in my back pocket. The reality is the best realistically I could hope for, the one time a year breakout, is that between Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, maybe even Daniel Jones, that someone outside the top 25, realistically, percentages-wise, could finish in the top 12. Darnold has as good a chance as any of them. But if all I want is top 12, that might not play competitively if I want to win the title. The top 6, you're better off taking a chance on a tight end, going for broke, holding off on tight end, and just saying, you know what? I know some guys here who are going to be potential breakout candidates, and I know that historically, every other year, a top 6 tight end comes out of nowhere and breaks through. The last thing I'll say is how this affects this year. I talked about quarterbacks. If we look at tight ends that are ranked outside the top 25, Dalton Schultz jumps off the page to me. He has the experience of being a weekly fantasy starter. He has fallen on hard times since going to Houston. He is the TE26 on a team that it's hard to know after Nico Collins who the number 2 is going to be on week to week. I think Dalton Schultz has decent shot. Jatavian Sanders for the Colts, also pretty decent. Mason Taylor for the Jets is a TE30. That might turn out to be prescient in the sense that people know what they're talking about there, and managers are aware that he's a rookie and he's, getting passes thrown by Aaron Rodgers, and who knows. On the other side, it could look ridiculous because Mason Taylor is arguably the second most talented pass catcher, or third most if you count Breece Hall, on that team already as a rookie. And it would be surprising if Mason Taylor finishes outside the top 24. If you're going to go for broke with someone, yeah, he's someone who could do it. So those three guys are good examples of guys that you might target in a deep league where you're going to go for the every other season average of a non-top 25 tight end cracking the top 6. And if you do strike gold, you don't have to worry about waivers for tight ends the entire season. And you have used all your great draft picks on the other 3 core positions, which isn't a bad deal. I'm BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football Winners. Follow me on the blog. Read the rest of this story on the blog today. Email me at the Gmail account if you have any questions, and sign up for rankings if you need them. See you tomorrow.